Welcome to A Day Away, where we chat about the planning, building, and funding of South Georgian Bay's Hospital of Tomorrow. My name is Allison Smith, and I'm the Director of Communications for the CGMH Foundation, and trying on a new hat as podcast host. Hosting a podcast is a new endeavor for the Foundation, and one that we've chosen for its ability to provide deeper conversations and learning. We are exploring topics centered around CGMH's innovation, collaborative spirit, and the importance of medicine in a resource-limited setting. Our hope is that we can inform our community on the impact of your support and how you play such a vital role in the future of healthcare. CGMH is an 84-bed hospital located in Collingwood, Ontario. We serve more than 73,000 permanent residents and over 3.5 million annual visitors to the communities of Wasaga Beach, Collingwood, Clearview, Creemore, the Blue Mountains, and parts of Grey Highlands. Today, I'm speaking with Dr. Michael Randazzo, Chief of Internal Medicine and Staff Physician for CGMH. Dr. Randazzo completed his internal residency training in the United States in 2017, followed by his fellowship training in the University of Toronto. He began his career as an academic internist at Toronto General Hospital and worked there for 5 years prior to moving full-time to CGMH. With a passion for teaching and medicine, he is also an assistant clinical professor, assistant professor and lecturer at McMaster, Queen's, and University of Toronto. With all that on the go, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Randazzo.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
So before we dive into our conversation around CGMH, I would love to understand what brought you to Collingwood.
Well, interestingly enough, I had a connection with a dear friend and colleague of mine who also works in the internal medicine department, Dr. Mark Bonta. And he originally was my program director at the fellowship that I went through in University of Toronto at Toronto General. And so after my fellowship, he recommended that, I'm starting, independent practice. Why don't you, kind of spread your wings, go and come up to Collingwood and see how you enjoy it. So I ended up doing a locum here. I was working as a locum physician part-time for about 3 years during the pandemic and whatnot, all while being a full-time internist at Toronto General. And what happened was I was having a very, very fantastic week where a lot of high acuity here, a lot of sick patients, but we managed to turn them around. I had patients, really appreciating all the care that they were getting, and to a point where I had patients really saying, "Dr. Randazzo, thank you. You really changed my life around," and it was very. What I would say is it was very heartwarming. Mm-hmm. So what happened was I was engaged, and I finished this week, and I was driving home, and I was going back to work at Toronto General in the next upcoming days, and I called my wife on the speakerphone, and I said to her, "Sweetheart, we have a bit of a problem." And she said, "Oh no, what?" And I said, "Actually, it's not that bad. It's not a bad thing. It's just that I really enjoy my life here, and I really enjoy the people here, the community. I really enjoy the physicians." And after that, after a lot of deliberation, my now wife, we're all very happy with my 1-year-old baby up in Collingwood.
Great. And how old was your baby when you moved here?
She was 7 days old.
That is remarkable.
Yeah. No, it wasn't easy on the wife, but we did it. Now we're settled here, and we can be more happy.
Oh, that's so great to hear. And I want to give a quick shout out. You mentioned Dr. Bonta, and this is a new medium for us, but Dr. Bonta actually has his own podcast as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Dr. Bonta has his own podcast. It's called Ditch the Lab Coat. He has very renowned guests that come on, physicians, subspecialists, So a shout out to him for sure.
Yeah, we look forward to having him on, and I'm sure we will get a lot of tips and tricks about this medium from him as well.
Absolutely.
So you work in the internal medicine program. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and maybe how it has grown here at CGMH?
Yeah, so just the history of it. The hospitalists and the family medicine department, they run the wards. They do part of the ICU and are primary physicians in the ICU as well. But the internal medicine department was originally, prior to my tenure here, was originally, complex patients. Well, maybe we shouldn't give the internist a call. So it was a low amount of consults. Internal medicine was kind of that thing where you would just involve them if there was some issues going on that needed a little bit fixing up. Now, what we do now is a lot more. So what we're doing is we're getting consulted for suggestions and recommendations on high acuity patients, very sick patients. We're the detectives when it comes to medical questions and diagnoses that haven't been diagnosed yet. And also we do ICU level care as well. But on top of that, the internists here have a very large scope. What else do we do? Well, let me tell you. We end up running the exercise stress tests. We run the nuclear stress tests as well. We read all the pulmonary function tests, we read all of the Holter tests, and we read all the ECGs. And this is all in 1 week of our being on call for 24/7.
Wow. Yeah. Never ends.
Sounds like a lot, but when you do the work and you get used to the week, you get a certain organization around it, and so in our department, we feel very capable of getting these things done.
And with the growth of this program, I'm sure patient care has improved. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it goes back to our training. We, as an internal medicine residents, and then into a fellowship, we do have training in critical care. We have to do 4 years at least of residency as well. So coming up here and seeing these patients who, back in the day, Collingwood, the hospital wasn't this acute. Now it is. We have really made a difference here because the ER physicians, the hospitalists, the surgical specialists, they do rely on that type of opinion and recommendations that we can provide them. So, collaboratively, we have had a significant impact in the hospital, which is really, like, going back to it, the reason why I wanted to be here.
And just for the layman out there, especially people like myself, can you tell us what it means when it is a high acuity?
Yeah, great question. So this means someone who is coming in is very unwell, could be unstable, meaning their blood pressure is low, they're in shock, they are unresponsive, and they could be going into a coma. So these are all the kind of various type of scenarios that we have to deal with.
Okay. And so I guess now you're being able to do things now because of the team that you're building that they couldn't do before because of this. And so do you find that's attracting people to the hospital with?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So we have, this is still a teaching hospital, so we have medical students, we have residents, and we have even fellows coming from the University of Toronto who come here and they're absolutely just blown away with all that we're doing, and all that we're doing in one day and in a week, and they find it fascinating that the scope really broadens when you're out here in the quote rural type of hospital. Just to kind of mention about the whole rural type of hospital, I still kind of have beef with it because, it may be a small hospital, but we're doing things that are very advanced, and we're really treating very sick patients here.
It's funny you mention it because we talk about that word all the time, rural, and what does it mean? And I think as someone who works in communications, I'm often trying to describe our hospital and what that word means. And I think trying to classify or categorize South Georgian Bay is very difficult. And I think that's maybe sometimes why the word seems out of place. But when we get down to talking about the hospital, it is being in an environment that's maybe more resource limited, but all the strengths that come from that. And I think your team is a great example of, maybe you don't have a whole bunch of specialists, but you are the specialists that can go in and identify a problem and bring in the people that you need to help that patient.
Yes, and I agree totally. And so, the fellows just of recent, even as well, they've said, wow, Dr. Randazzo, you guys are it. You're the last line of defense. And, to some people that might be very stressful. You end up getting a certain tolerance and kind of dealing with that stress. But it's true. We're the specialists who take care of the sickest patients here in the hospital, but we also know our resources are limited. So if there are those higher level type of procedures that are required, we know when to press that button and call those tertiary or quaternary centers that will be able to help us with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think having, the simulation training program is another great example too of just being prepared for those scenarios that you wouldn't normally see in the hospital.
Absolutely, yeah. So Jesse Guscott has been pivotal with that as well. Our colleague who's our anesthesiologist, and so he's been running those sim labs as well. It helps out both the trainees and also the physicians who are practicing here as well, definitely.
And you mentioned about CGMH being a teaching hospital. How does that benefit the patients? How does that make our hospital better because we have this program?
Yeah, several ways actually. Number one is it's always nice to have, instead of one pair of eyes, a couple pair of eyes, right?
That's true.
And so that's one way. And how it really helps is, how I feel it really helps is that we're having these trainees come in, really enjoy their time here, get a lot of experience. And what you have noticed is that they come back. And so after years of training, they say, this is where I'd like to be. So they settle here. And we've had multiple instances of the family medicine residents coming back and doing hospital medicine here as well.
I think that really speaks to the culture of the team. And you bring up a good point just in terms of retention or coming back. We know, and we have these conversations a lot with folks right now around employee retention and recruitment. It's certainly a pressing issue that's facing hospitals, not just CGMH, but hospitals across Ontario,
Absolutely.
Canada, probably globally.
Absolutely.
And I know that's an issue that our leadership team here is taking quite seriously. And they are right now working to prepare not only for this new hospital that will come, but also for expanding services today. So services to meet the evolving needs of our communities now, because it now matters just as much. And I think one of the key things that they're focusing on and what a true focus is the people, our people, our staff, and our community that's here at CGMH. And I think as they work on these new plans, they are working right now, which is really exciting, on their new strategic plan. And that Team CGMH is really going to be a strong focus for them. So I'm just wondering, how have you observed this sense of community, maybe even outside of it being a teaching hospital, and really the passion amongst the staff? And why do you think that'll be so vital as we prepare for the new hospital?
Absolutely. I think what I've noticed that is striking is the collegiality between all departments and the from our side, the physicians. I've gone to I'm quite proud of this. I think I've been, and the director of the meetings can actually attest to it, but I have been to all of the Medical Staff Association meetings. And that's after a year, so that's pretty good.
It is good.
Yeah, it's not bad. But these are a collection of the physicians here who are coming to these Medical Staff Association meetings and discussing, things that we can improve on in the hospital, including even environmental things as well. But also just about, hey, we're going to be doing a hike in the next month, and this is the date and time. You're more than welcome to come. What I've noticed, there was even a baseball game, and Dr. Fraser is going to be upset that I didn't go, and I do apologize to her over the air here. But this is a sense of a true team and culture. And I had great colleagues back at Toronto General as well. But while here, I've noticed that everyone's very close. And, you can just get on the phone and call your colleague if we're both taking care of a patient, and easily chat with anybody.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a differentiator, especially as we talk about whether we want to use the word rural or not, but practicing here and looking at healthcare here in South Georgian Bay is that ability to just call someone up and be able to talk about that patient and maybe help diagnose or determine issues earlier. I think that's why sometimes that word, does associate maybe with that there isn't the facilities available or it's too small. And then there's balancing it out with, well, we're not a city, we're not, I guess we're a regional center in a sense, but I think there just isn't the best word. It's just, we are just us.
But the fact of the matter is that we are handling sicker patients, and we have the capability of doing so. And the only time that we really need extra help is when there's that sub-specialist opinion that we need, or if a patient's very ill and requires very high-level things that would be required either downtown or in Barrie. So, we do have a phenomenal cast of physicians and good trained nurses. So.
What I really love when I'm chatting with our staff is there is just such a sense of pride amongst our staff and teamwork. I know this past year we were chatting with a few of the nurses about their appreciation time and how it's been for them, because we chatted with them the year before and it was freshly out of COVID. There was a lot of burnout. There was a lot of coming down from that, and actually not even really being able to afford the time to come down from that. And one thing they said this year was that they really felt like they were finally coming out of it, but because of the strength of the team. So talking about all the different departments, support from the doctors, support from the lab, support from maintenance, support from physio. Like there's so many different people involved in that continuum of care. And it really does feel like it's a team environment. And
it runs 24/7. And, people might notice that myself and my internal medicine colleagues here in our department, we're in early. Like we come in at 5:30, 5 a.m. And what I want to mention about that is that, people notice we're coming in that early, but there's the nurses. They're working their butts off. Can I say butt?
Of course.
Okay, I could say butt.
Yeah.
and so they're working their butts off, and then I'm right in there, and every day I see the blood techs as well, drawing blood. So, every day is a hello for them as well, because we end up running into each other all the time. But all in all, these are, the nurses are doing a phenomenal job. They're doing the best they can with the resources that they have. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I now that I have such an understanding of how the hospital operates, on the very rare occasion I've had to come in with a sick child and have blood work done. And that's a great example where I now can picture that laboratory department and how vital it is for them to be there and how quickly they're turning around test results and working. And you really don't see that as a patient. And they're just so vital. And I think we're seeing that more and more specialists like yourself are coming to the area. And, we have people wanting to move their practice here, really seeking to have a more balanced lifestyle for themselves, for their families.
It's a good living.
It is. It's pretty spectacular here. And how do you think our community, our patients specifically, stand to benefit from maybe what I would see as that migration of specialists?
Well, absolutely. I mean, they definitely will. What happens is people get hold and they get word that life's good in the wood, and so with the constant rotation of residents and trainees that we're having come in, they're realizing this, and they're coming in from Toronto or other downtown areas and whatnot, and so this community is growing, and it is getting older as well. We have a very high prevalence of patients older than 65, and with these specialists who are realizing that life's very good here. We have the Four Seasons. We have a wonderful community. We talked about the physicians being all very community based. That the patients are all going to benefit from it. And for example, we've now, as the internal medicine department, we've opened up the internal medicine clinic, and we have recruited Dr. Naylor, who is our internal medicine clinic physician, and we're open twice weekly. And now, where there was no internal medicine clinic before, now we have him here. And just like we see a large variety of different type of complex medical issues in the hospital, now he's also seeing them and taking care of them in the community as well. So it's just an example of how, as time is moving on, everyone's realizing, how lovely this community is, and people want to be a part of it.
And I guess being able to provide that care here, it means fewer people have to travel outside of the area because they can now get the care here.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing, right? I mean, we have, there's people who need, technically like a hematologist's kind of opinion, or a respirologist's opinion, or a neurologist's opinion. Well, the internal medicine department, to a certain degree, can be taken care of a lot of these types of diagnoses and help manage. And fortunately, with the connections we have, we do know these subspecialists, and we can always just, bounce ideas or get recommendations from them as well. So coming from those downtown institutions and bringing up those connections as well is very helpful.
Absolutely. And I think one thing, we're doing things now, and I think opening this internal medicine clinic is so fantastic to help in the care that we receive now. And one of the things we're really obviously excited to talk about is the future of our new hospital. So just to throw a little stat out here, the hospital now, CGMH, serves one of Ontario's fastest growing, and as you mentioned, aging regions, with an expected 64% increase in hospital admissions within 24 years, which is staggering.
Kind of raises some hairs, doesn't it?
Yes. And CGMH is working with the provincial government to build a new state-of-the-art hospital, which will essentially be a facility that will be almost 4 times larger than our current footprint. Can you tell us what you're looking forward to in the new hospital and how that might impact internal medicine?
Yeah. I think the very first thing is space. We don't have enough space to do everything that we want to. So, could we be running 2 exercise stress tests at a time? That would be fantastic. But more importantly, even, is the ICU. What if we could go from 5 ICU beds to 8, and how important that would be. We run into precarious positions sometimes where our ICU is full. We may have to transfer patients to other hospitals if the ICU remains at that capacity. But imagine if we can have a eight bed ICU and be able to take care of that many patients. That to me would be the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the most critical time in that department. And how do you feel, obviously from a foundation standpoint, we work with this incredibly generous community of support. And I know right now they're in the process of fundraising for an echocardiography, and they fundraised for a lot of equipment that internal medicine has benefited from. Is there any piece of equipment that you work with now that you just feel grateful to have here?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. There's so what we have is can I say the brand name and everything?
Sure.
Why
we don't
not?
have any rules yet on this podcast.
I got no rules? No. Yeah, so we have a Philips Spark ultrasound, very fancy, and we love it. But what it does, it really helps us for a quick and accurate diagnoses. We can do POCUS ultrasounds, which is a point of care ultrasound, looking at the heart, looking at the abdomen, but also it helps us perform life-saving procedures when you need them the most. So, for example, when someone needs a large line called a central line into their neck or sometimes in their femoral region to give them life-saving support with keeping their blood pressure up. These kind of things, this type of ultrasound helps us actually perform this type of ultrasound-guided procedure. So that ultrasound was phenomenal. It gives a very clear picture. It's wonderful, and it was all because of donation.
Yeah, I think it's always extraordinary. For most of us, this equipment is a little bit foreign, trying to understand all the benefits. And we always look at the equipment and try to really understand how it's going to impact patient care, because we care so much about getting people out of the hospital and back enjoying, as you said, life that's good in the wood or wherever you are out in our community. And so that becomes so important. And we have such incredible donors that are willing to hear about all this stuff and want to invest in better healthcare overall. And I think we always are so interested to hear about the equipment and how it's utilized amongst our staff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's making a huge difference. So between, and let's not even forget just about the things like the ultrasounds, the echocardiogram, but also even the simulation part. These are important things for the future so that, staff physicians or trainees they will end up coming here. They're going to need this type of education and experience to be able to provide that care later on in the future in our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so great thinking about and taking all this into consideration, because I think it's one of the number one things we talk about is just getting people up here and understanding that it's so fantastic that this hospital will grow with the growing community and it will be bigger, and it will be up to us to really staff it and equip it with all the people that we need in there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that day. It's a very exciting time, and I'm happy to have been able to see already, even from my locum time to now, where it's grown. The donations that we have gotten already, what that's actually provided, and then looking forward into I'm looking in front of it, the magazine of our the concept art of the new hospital, and it just gets me very excited to the things that are to come. Mm-hmm. It's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think although we may be currently in an aging, cramped building, we are right now working to create a home for healthcare professionals. And we're really doing that through the state-of-the-art technology, that equipment we talked about, and as well our strength in rural interprofessional education and training, and of course, our exceptional team of healthcare professionals. As I mentioned a bit earlier, our CGMH team is gearing up to unveil their strategic plan. And I know that's going to be happening in fairly soon, I think early 2025. And they're going to really want to hone in on that strong commitment to team and community. And I must say, we're really looking forward to sitting down to hear from the hospital a little bit more about their vision and initiatives for the future of healthcare here in South Georgian Bay. Our podcast is called A Day Away, as we talk about tomorrow a lot around here. As a foundation, our work is always future planning and forward thinking to ensure we can provide and care for generations to come. Today, our community benefits from the generosity of those that gave before them. And now we are embarking on our biggest and boldest mission yet. We are steadfast on a mission to build South Georgian Bay's Hospital Tomorrow to expand healthcare services for our fast-growing community. We know that a bright, beautiful tomorrow is always possible because of the care that we give today. Hospitals are predicated on brighter tomorrows. Dr. Randazzo, thank you for sitting down with me today to talk about your work and to tell us a bit more about what you do here at CGMH. We like to end our sessions with some closing thoughts of what tomorrow means to you. I know you have a family here and a really young one at home. What do you envision for the health of our community and the future of South Georgian Bay?
Yeah, it's a very good question. What I do envision is quality care that we're just expanding on. So I want, and what I envision is what we're doing now in a larger context to help to help all the patients that we need to help in this community that's ever so growing. Going back, as you said, thinking about having a little 1-year-old. This is the community that, she's going to be in, the community that her friends are going to be in, that I brought my family up here for. And I think that having, an integral part of this community being the hospital, that we need to grow it to where it belongs. And I think that we're heading in the right direction.
Oh, that's wonderful. We hope you enjoyed our conversation. We are working to build the new hospital that South Georgian Bay needs and deserves. With your help, our new facility will be ready to support all of us when we need it most, when tomorrow comes.